Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast, where we discuss health education and how to best teach health ed in the K 12 setting.
Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Lori Reichel, and happy 2025. I hope that this year brings you more happiness, positive wellness, and helps you grow a little bit more as a school health educator. Basically, this podcast is to provide all of us another forum for how we can get updated, even in some skill-based or knowledge-based manner. So thanks for listening in. And as a reminder, there is a link in the last episode, but I'll try to remember to put it into this episode's description too. There's a link for all of the 2024 episodes of the School Health Educators Podcast. There's a total of 26 episodes, so those are still available. Feel free to check them out. This episode, which is the first of 2025, this episode is going to provide some information on a wellness assessment that I used ever since, I think it was 2001, something like that. I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to share how I perceive wellness, the different aspects, and I use the acronym SMEEPS, and that is social, mental, emotional, environmental, physical, and spiritual. I've used that in the 8th grade and high school setting. Certainly the E's and the S's are interchangeable, like you could switch the order. That's what I mean, not interchangeable, but you can switch what S and what E goes first. Yet in the year 2025, and many years ago, we recognized that wellness has more than one aspect of health. Like a lot of people used to look at health as having a physical wellness, and that was it. Yet we recognize that there's all these different aspects. So for the 8th grade setting, and I would do this in 7th grade too, if they were ready for this. I think a lot of 7th graders can handle other aspects of wellness. But what I used to do is I used to use the SMEEPS acronym. So this episode is going to go over an assessment that I created for that. But first, let me back up and talk about the episode I did last year. It was on the Who is Healthiest assignment. So if you are a health teacher who is about to have another semester start, and it's like that 7th, 8th grade level or that high school level, this might be a way for you to introduce what wellness is in the year 2025, and also gain a little bit of background of where your students are at for whether or not they know this information. So last year I shared the Who's Healthiest activity. I am going to pull that up on my screen. So if you're listening to this through one of the podcast platforms, that's great. Please remember when you have time to go and look up the description and make sure that you can see the Who is Healthiest activity link, because I'm providing that. And if you want to also watch this on the YouTube channel, there'll be a link to watch this so you can see some of the things that I'm pulling up on the screen. As a reminder, this podcast is to help all of us grow, and I'm sharing some materials that I've used in my life. Okay, so last year was February 26, 2024. I shared the Who is Healthiest activity. This can be tweaked for your students. Again, this could be done 7th and 8th grade or high school. I've used this in undergraduate classes as well as graduate level courses when I'm introducing like the concept of the different aspects of wellness. I do have to say it's gotten easier to go over because a lot of people are gotten more open-minded that health is more than physical health and social health. You know, there's so much more that's out there. So anyway, this is the Who is Healthiest activity. Basically, this worksheet that I have up on my screen right now has a description of 5 different young people. You can tweak them. What I have students do is they are provided a hard copy. That's my way of doing this. I provide them a hard copy, and they're supposed to rank who is the healthiest. So 5 being the least healthiest and 1 being the healthiest. And they rank it individually. They can do this as a homework assignment so they can be prepped for a class for a discussion, or you can do it right as your anticipatory set at the beginning of the class. So there are 5 descriptions, and then after they have ranked them on their own worksheet, I put students into groups. You know how to do that. You can randomize that. You can put them in specific groups, that kind of thing. Again, at the beginning of the year, if you don't know who's who, you can just see, like if you do it randomly, how people are going to work with one another in small groups. So within small groups, they then have to rank the group's decision of who is healthiest to least healthiest, and they have to make sure they're able to defend their answers. So after the group work, I have them put their group's answers on the board with the names of the people from who is healthiest in their eyes to least healthiest, and then we have a discussion. This sometimes takes 2 40-minute periods because I really want to delve deeper about, like when we see that Lee is a high school senior and was just diagnosed with HIV, I go a little deeper to say, okay, how could Lee have gotten HIV? What are the ways to see what the students know? And also say, well, if Lee just found out last year, we know that this person wasn't necessarily born with it because they're a high school senior and most likely they would know by then. So we go over some factual stuff. And then to summarize, this question is posed of who really is the healthiest. And we don't know. I mean, we're all trying to do the best we can with the tools we've been provided. And we have to recognize that all of us have weaknesses. But even if we do have a weakness or a challenge, however you want to phrase it, even if we do, that doesn't mean we can't be healthy or we can't be well. So this is what I usually do to have students start thinking about health is more than this body. It's more than what you put into your body. Especially we have to be careful with nutrition because we don't know who's living in a food desert. We have to be really careful that we don't shame people about some healthy habits if they don't have access to some of the products to support those healthy habits. Okay, so this is the Who is Healthiest Ditto or worksheet. You can tell that I'm a little older. So that's one thing. And after I've done this with students, I'll then say to them, I would like you to self-assess yourself in your SMEEPS areas. And basically, I introduce from this worksheet the concept that there's more than a couple of areas of health. It's SMEEPS health, social, mental, emotional, environmental, physical, social, spiritual, And for homework, they actually assess themselves. And I created this worksheet. This is over 20 years old. And basically what students have to do, and I just put it up on my computer screen. So if you want to see this on YouTube, go for it. Basically what students have to do is they read through these statements for their social health, mental health, etc. And like one thing under social health is, let's see, I can say, where is that? I can say no to my friends when they're doing something I do not want to do. And a lot of students actually, they're like, it's really challenging for me. So it's great for them to recognize that that's not a skill set of theirs. So this worksheet basically is they go through this assessment, they mark off what they perceive that they do for these areas of health. They count up the areas. And then they comment on what areas of health do they seem to be doing the best with, what do they need to improve upon. And then I ask them to make a goal. Now, this is not the goal setting unit. It's more of an introduction of, I want you to start being aware of what you're doing in your own life, how you can improve things. And this can then be an introduction into a planning and goal setting unit, or can be infused into something else within your whole entire curriculum. So again, the purpose of this is for them to self-assess themselves. If you know who Deb Tackman is, she was one of the first guests on the School Health Educators podcast. If you have her book, she can, if you contact her, she can even probably send you the activity. She taught me a way of doing a class assessment with SMEEPS. and that was baseball, SMEEPS baseball. That's what I call it. I think she still uses the acronym SPECIES, like species pi for areas of health. But again, I do SMEEPS. So I do SMEEPS baseball. Got the idea from Deb Packman. And for SMEEPS baseball, I have everybody stand up. And I explain, in baseball we have 3 strikes. And I go throughout a variety of statements that if they can say yes to it, they remain standing. If they say no, they have to sit down and then come back up. And the third time that they have they say no, that means they're out. So it's a little bit of a class competition to say, hey, how we're doing in certain things. Sometimes I ask really wild comments. Sometimes they don't always tell the truth because, they're in a public area with their peers in the classroom. But basically how it would work is I'd first make a comment like, okay, so stay standing if you can say no to your friends when they're doing something you do not want to do. And if they're all standing, great. Let me go on to mental health. I watch educational programs on television, and I'm reading right from the assessment I have on my screen. Then I go to environmental health. I recycle batteries at home. And if they say no, they have to sit down and then get back up. Another one, I take time to play. That's for my emotional health. I chose to put that here. Physical health. I do not go to tanning salons. If you go to tanning salons, you'd have to sit down. Spiritual health. I feel hopeful most often. So that's like one round of SMEEPS, and then I'd go back to start over again with social. So I know I went over like a lot of different activities, but to summarize what I went over is when you start off a course, feel free to go over the different aspects, dimensions of wellness. I know I spoke to Andy Mill last year on the podcast about how he presents the dimensions of wellness. I use the Who's Healthiest worksheet where they have to rank people. From there, we then define what is wellness. And then from there, we might do the SMEEPS baseball. And then for homework, they have a SMEEPS assessment. And this can go into a planning and goal setting unit. So the links for today will include the Who is Healthiest worksheet, the SMEEPS assessment that I've been using for over 20 years, or I've had for 20 years. I created it so long ago. Also, I'll have a link for all of the episodes from last year, 2024. So I hope that this episode has been helpful. Thank you so much for listening in. And as a reminder, please follow this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Number 2, please. Also, you can give us, like a thumbs up. You can give us some 5 stars. That'd be lovely. Also, please check out the School Health Educators website. I'm continuing to build on that as much as I can. It does take time for me to catch up at times on that website because there's a couple of ways you have to link things in and all. And last but not least, thank you for doing what you do. You definitely matter. You're making a difference for young people, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. Oh, one last thing. If you want to be a guest this year in 2025, please send an email to schoolhealtheducators@gmail.com. Thanks for listening in, and I hope you have a wonderful day.